Welcome to Someone's Gotta Drive. I want to give a fair warning to anyone who is listening to this. This podcast includes childhood traumas, talk of drug addiction, parental drug addiction, and other types of traumatic instances that may be triggering to some. And in my last episode, I had talked about how my marriage ended very quickly. And I kind of want to go back a little bit to season 1 in regards to like how my childhood was. Real quick, just to kind of recap a few things. We were always told that we were raised to care for our parents. We were always told that we were brought onto this earth to do as they said. And we were raised to be enablers. To go get mom her beer, to take her to the liquor store. It probably wasn't until Eminem, the musician, came out that some of us started realizing that, we're not the only one with a messed up mom. Now, mind you, our mother does not sound nearly as messed up as Eminem's mom. I'm not trying to compare or contrast, but it's also that, okay, so we're not the only ones. And then I met my ex-husband, and it was like, okay, yeah, I'm definitely not the only one out there. She had her fair share of problems and issues as well. So, that was one of the reasons why the two of us had kind of bonded and maybe trauma bonded even. That like, okay, both of our parents had addiction issues and gambling issues and, the secrets that we would have to keep or the things that we would need to do to make everyone happy. So, by the time it came to light that within 4 months of my marriage, he had been fired for looking at porn on the company computer. He was selling pills and drugs out of our house. He was trying to get good with a drug dealer so he would be fronted pills so he could sell them. Now, I want to be clear about something. I don't care if you're looking at porn. I just didn't. I didn't care. What I cared about was that you were looking at it on company time, on a company computer, purposefully doing something you should not be doing. And I would believe that that is the difference between right and wrong. And all the things that I pretty much had heard as a child, that I was raised to do this and I was supposed to do that. Now I'm being told, well, you're supposed to stick by me. I'm supposed to screw up and you're supposed to stick by me, and I'm supposed to stick by you when you screw up. And I kept kind of saying to him, but I made it clear, no pills, no pills. And if you think that being a drug dealer and trying to sell drugs, no matter what they are, is a acceptable form of employment, you have a whole nother thing coming. Because now you're putting my life in danger. Okay? Like he had said before, what do you want them, when they were snorting the pills or taking the pills in my home? Do you want them leaving and getting caught and it coming back to us? Then obviously this is not a proper form of employment. This is not how you make money. So I left him about a week before my birthday, about a week before our official 4-month anniversary. I was trying to get out of sales, with the meat packing, the meat selling industry, and decided to try to get into marketing, something where I was making a paycheck based off of a service I was able to offer, but the services I was offering were free. So at the time, it was getting people to, choose what energy provider went to your local utility company. And at the time, BGE was the utility company, and you can choose who they purchase, say, their gas or electric from. And if you went with a certain company, which was, you didn't have to pay any money, you just said, hey, I want this company, I got X dollars. And, I'm one of those kind of people, and it's true in the sales world. You can't sell something you don't believe in. So I believed in this, and I thought I was doing pretty well. I had met some friends through that. And as I was going through these troubling times, they would even say, yeah, no, this isn't right. And so I was starting to get some validation that no, my marriage is not going well. And it just kind of felt like the second I got married, everything changed. And I remember him not being happy at his job, but and asking him, can you at least wait until we're done the wedding? Because there's just so much going on. But waiting to change jobs didn't mean go look at porn and try to get yourself fired. And in that situation, you're not going to get unemployment either. They're going to be like, it's not wrongful termination. It's not due to lack of, funds or whatever. The person was blatantly doing something that they shouldn't be doing. And so it just really felt like as soon as I got married, everything changed. And it was this life that I never signed up for. And so I told my parents, that's it. I'm moving back home. I'm going to leave him. Like I've lost all the weight that I've worked so hard to gain. This is what's going on. He's selling pills. He's, he looked at porn on the company computer. Like I just really feel like everything changed. And both of my parents were like completely understandable. And so I asked my mom and dad and a girlfriend of mine to come and help me get all of my stuff out of our apartment. And so we drive out there, and my mom and I show up first. And in my refrigerator, we had a few beers. I think I had some wine or something. And my ex and I, we just didn't really drink that much. So like these beers, I think were in our fridge for probably months at this point. The wine was tapped into, but once again, probably for a long time. And so I make my way in my bedroom to clear out my closet of all my clothes. And I hear my mom in the fridge. And like I had mentioned before, because of her having to be reattached, they said she had to get off of all this, pain medication. So her addictions now just aren't on the forefront of my mind. On the forefront of my mind is leaving my ex-husband. And I haven't been living with my parents, and my parents haven't been very upfront about all their problems either. And so I go out into the kitchen to find my mother. I think she had downed probably 2 or 3 beers and the remaining bottle of that wine in a matter of like 10 minutes, like gone. And she is stumbling, and she can barely find the chair to sit down. And I mean it. We were only in my apartment for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And right then and there, my father pulls up, and my mom's like, oh shit, hide this. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I was just in utter shock. And my dad walks in, and she tries to sit on a chair, and she completely misses it and falls on the floor. And there's like 2 or 3 empty beer bottles and an empty wine bottle on my table. And my dad looks at me and he goes, what the hell's going on here? You getting your mother drunk? And I said, no, I've been in I have trash bags full of my clothes. I've been in my bedroom packing my stuff. And he just goes, that's it. I've had enough. I'm done. I'm doing what Jesse's doing, and I am leaving you because Jesse's got it right. We're done with addicts. We're done with the alcoholism. We're done with the addictions. And my mom was just in shock. What are you talking about? And he literally looked at her in front of me and said, I'm leaving you. He hurried up and helped me get as much as we could out of my apartment. That was mine. And he left. And I was tasked with driving my mother home. And I had a meeting that night at my office. So on my way to my parents' house from my apartment, I went ahead and swung into the office. And while I was there, while we were driving there, my mom was asking me, do you really think your dad's serious? Do you really think he's going to leave me? And I was like, I don't know. I have no idea. And so I go to the office, I have my meeting, and then we go back to my parents' house to unload my car or my mom's car, and he's not there. He is not there. And he did not come home that night. And I now know where he went, but at the time we had no clue where he was. And my mom was just like, wow, he must be really upset at me. And I'm like, well, Mom, I don't mean to sound selfish, but we weren't there for you to get drunk. We were there to pack my things and go because I'm going through something right now. I'm leaving my husband. I'm going through a really bad time right now. And all you could care about was getting drunk. You couldn't care that your daughter needed you. You couldn't care about anything else but getting your fix. And so she fell asleep that night. And the next day I saw my dad, and he obviously brought my stuff to the house. And we had asked him, are you for real? And he's like, I'm for real. I am done. This marriage is over. It's been over for a long time. You know for a fact that your mother and her addictions have been a problem for way longer than anyone has spoken of. It's not just now. It's when I go to work and I get a call from the caregiver that she literally walked to the bathroom and came back and found your mother sloshed on the deck. We can't even leave your mother alone for her to go, say, to the store to get cigarettes or the grocery store to get some food or whatever, because we come back and your mother is trashed. We can't even go to the bathroom anymore without your mother just being trashed. We're finding alcohol bottles everywhere. It's just getting really, really bad. And I was just like, oh. And once again, I have exchanged one evil for another, because now I'm walking out of this home where my ex-husband was selling pills into a home where my mother is guzzling alcohol like it's water. Meanwhile, my ex is calling me constantly. Can we talk about this? Can we work on this? I just got another job. I'm not selling the pills. I'm like, but are you doing them? And he's like, from time to, and he was like, what do you expect from me? Time to time, you just left me. I'm drinking, I'm smoking, I'm taking pills, I'm doing everything. And I'm going, that's not my fault. Don't blame me leaving you for your addictions. And I had to try to stick to my guns as hard as it was, because it wasn't like I didn't love them. I didn't love drugs. I didn't love pills. I didn't love the alcohol. I didn't love any of it. But at the same time, I was 22 years old. 22, 23 actually. I think I just turned 23 at that point. And I hadn't had the chance to live. I hadn't had the chance to party. I hadn't had the chance to be young. And that was the eye-opener for my whole childhood, for my whole teenage years. And now I'm in my early 20s. And I've never once gotten the chance to just go have fun and to go be young. And here I have friends going out to clubs and they're partying and they're having so much fun. And I'm dealing with the real world stuff. I'm paying the rent. I'm going through a divorce. I'm handling family issues. I am not having fun. That is for damn sure. And so I think it was like how some people have a midlife crisis and they're like, I want to go and have fun and do all the things. I feel like I was having my midlife crisis at 23 because I had not had the chance to do all the fun things, be a crazy kid. I got thrown into adulthood really quickly with taking care of my mother, being kicked out, and doing all the things that I could do to be an outstanding citizen while I was in high school. I had a group of friends with the marketing company that I was working with, and one of the guys ended up being very close to me, and we started dating. We started dating very shortly after I left my ex. I just was kind of lonely and wanted to just have fun and be free and just be a little careless because, damn it, everyone else in my life was being careless. Why can't I? And I remember I was probably home for about a week, and my mom had known that I was starting to see this guy. And she was like, well, that's not allowed. You can't do that while living under my roof. And, you're living under my roof and it's rent free right now. And so you're gonna, listen to my rules. And I was just kind of like, what? Like, I'm 23 years old. I'm an adult. I'm trying to get my life together and I just want to have a little fun. How is it that you get to do all the things that you do? And now you're kind of judging me and telling me how to live my life. And so about a week after I had moved into my parents' house, I had started staying with some friends through that marketing company because no, you're not. I'm 23 years old. You're not going to give me restrictions. Not when I've been living on my own for the past 5 years, able to do whatever I please, whenever I please, however I please, to a certain degree. So I started seeing him and started having fun. But I also let my mom be part of my life a little bit more because you know what? I was trying to find myself. And I really wanted a mom who was going to understand and be close and try to give me advice. My dad also had sat me down and told me that, well, he's been seeing somebody and he's been seeing that person for quite a while. That, yeah, my mother's addictions and her problems have definitely made him stray away too. He just, he was kind of old fashioned. He lost his virginity to my mother. He loved my mother. And when they got married, it was till death do us part. And the last thing he was still planning on doing was getting a divorce. Separating, living in separate homes, whatever, yes, but not divorce. And he made that clear to the person he was with too. And then it all suddenly kind of came to light. Every Wednesday, when my dad had to go somewhere that was considered work related after work, like a meeting or, take something from one store to another, that's not what he was doing. He was seeing his other friend, his other lady. The night that he had left in anger and said, I am leaving you, I am done. That's where he went. On times that he went on crabbing trips by himself, he wasn't really by himself. And honestly, I was happy for him. He deserved some sort of happiness. Like I've said before, I wasn't the best of teenagers, and I know that I was a rebellious teenager and kid to a certain extent. But I knew that my mother was causing us all hell. You can't tell me it wasn't just me. And when I got kicked out of the house and I said, one day you're going to come home and find all of your stuff out of either your room or the house that you built, I was right. She had moved him into my bedroom. And before I had moved back home, he had moved his stuff back in. Because at that point, once my mom came home from the surgeries, she was just begging him to come back. Why? Because she knew she screwed up. She knew he was a good man. And even though he went back into that bedroom, their marriage was over. And he looked at me and said, "Nope, you were right about that. And there were a lot of things that you were right about. I just didn't want to see it." And once you moved out, yeah, I saw it. I saw it all. At that moment, I made it very clear to him I just wanted him happy. Meanwhile, I was trying to find happiness on my own, even if that meant being poor, broke, sharing a 2-bedroom apartment with 6 other people. I didn't care. This was my time to do those things. I'm in my 20s. And at the time, you think you're supposed to know it all, right? Because you're on your own now. You're trying to figure it out. Now that I'm like 40, I tell people in their 20s all the time who think they're supposed to know it all and have it all figured out already. You're not. This is where you're supposed to screw up. This is where you're supposed to be broke. This is where you're supposed to learn all the truths about a hard life. And this is where you're supposed to be eating the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and the ramen noodles every day because you're so broke that that's the only thing you can afford. Meanwhile, my ex had also found someone to be with, but he was also doing his fair share of drugs. And I remember one day walking into a grocery store. A friend of his had been, I think, recruiting for the Marines or something like that. And so he had seen me with my friend. And, he was just like disgusted and everything else. Meanwhile, my ex husband also had a lady friend of his own, but he was doing so much drugs and everything else that you could possibly think of that wasn't even funny. And every once in a while, he would text or call me either in anger or, "Please come love me." I'll never forget around my birthday, he was like, "Please come home. I need sex. I need love. Please come love me." And I said, "Are you sober?" He was like, "Well, no." And I was like, "Then no, I'm not coming home." Like, you need to sober up. You need to, what part of I don't want drugs in my life aren't you understanding? And, it was one thing to have a drink every now and then. But it was a whole nother thing if you're taking pills morning, noon, and night, and you're smoking morning, noon, and night, and you can't seem to even hold a job because of your own addictions. I was planning on annulling the marriage, but honestly, there was just so much going on in such a short amount of time. So one of the things that I did was not annul the marriage. I did give him the car that my sister had given us. Because I'm not going to lie, I still felt bad about leaving him and leaving him in dire straits. My parents were letting me borrow their vehicles, and I moved back home where I could have a little bit more access to other things. And like the girlfriend I was before, giving him my car and giving him money and making sure he was okay, I decided I'll give you the car, but I'm not going to give you any money. You can have the car and try to get your life in order. I can do that easily on my own over here. And tried my best to just kind of stay away from him and tried to just get through the holidays. Because over the next 2 months, yeah, it was Thanksgiving, it was Christmas, and let me just get through the holidays. Let me just try to work and figure something out. And you know what? Come January, we'll kind of, we'll revisit all this. For now, let's just be separate. Let's just be apart. Let me just be with my family. And, let me try to figure all of this out.